Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 30 ranked running backs and my running back tiers for week number 10 of the 2022 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, then please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And if you have any questions about week number 10, please make sure you ask down below in the comment section. We'll be talking about the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings, a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get on in to today's video. We begin with tier number 1 at the running back position. All 6 of these running backs are must start in my opinion. At number 1, we have Saquon Barkley of the New York Football Giants going up against the Houston Texans at home in MetLife. The Houston Texans defense is by far and away the easiest matchup for a running back. The Houston Texans defense is absolutely fucking atrocious at stopping the run. Over the last 2 weeks, Saquon Barkley has been definitely worse compared to the start of the season, running back 17 and 14.5 PPR, but ultimately that does not sway me at all. This is a incredibly easy matchup up against the Texans, and I think Saquon Barkley takes big advantage of that. At number 2, we have Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. That will always be weird to say. I'm always used to him being a Carolina Panther. Of the 49ers going up against the LA Chargers on Sunday Night Football. In his last game, he was on bye last week up against the Rams. He was the running back number 2.5 PPR, currently the running back number 5 on the season. The matchup up against the Chargers is also amazing, just like Saquon Barkley's matchup up against the Houston Texans. The LA Chargers defense is pretty bad up against the run, and the 49ers have shown us, at least in the last game, that they want to heavily utilize Christian McCaffrey, which makes sense. You don't trade all those picks to just let the guy ride the fucking pine. So at the end of the day here, I think Christian McCaffrey has another fantastic performance. At number 3, we have my guy, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb of the Cleveland Browns going up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Now, on paper, when you look at the stats are a little bit fugazi in my opinion. They'll tell you that, hey, the Miami Dolphins are good up against the run. And let me tell you, as a Dolphins fan who watches every game closely, the Miami Dolphins defense sucks absolute donkey cock up against the run. I fully expect 9-inch Nicholas Chubb to go to pound town up against our run defense. We could not tackle Justin Fields last week. It was absolutely embarrassing. Nick Chubb up against the Dolphins. He's obviously not going to see a bunch of targets, but he gets so many touches every single game. It doesn't matter. Currently the running back 3.5 PPR on the season. This is a great spot, in my opinion, up against the Dolphins. I think they're going to look to run the ball a lot in this game in order to slow down the clock so the Dolphins don't, or to speed up the clock technically, right? To make time go off the clock so that the Dolphins don't have as much time to work with offensively. At number 4, we have Mr. Clean himself, Austin Eckler of the LA Chargers, going up against the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. Now, in my opinion, this is an incredibly tough matchup. We did see a point in the middle of the season here, or at least we're kind of in the middle of the season now, but in the middle of, say, like weeks 4 through 6, where the defense wasn't the best for the 49ers because they're banged up, but now that they're healthy, the defense is concerning. But it doesn't really matter when it comes to Austin Eckler, a guy who's such a key focal point on this team. Through his last 5 games, he's been running back 6, bye week, running back 2, 3, 1, and 2. This guy's currently the running back number 1 in half PPR on the season. The matchup against the 49ers isn't the best, but without Mike Williams, more than likely without Keenan Allen, I expect a big spot out of Eckler. At number 5, we have Travis Etienne Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. 3 games in a row, back-to-back-to-back top 10 performances out of Travis Etienne. The matchup up against the Chiefs isn't amazing, nor is it awful. Chiefs defense is pretty average. I do expect Travis Etienne to look good in this game. Ever since they got rid of James Robinson, it has been very clear that it is Travis Etienne season. It's Ass Etienne season. I fully expect a big showing out of him up against the Chiefs, and that's why he's with the big dogs inside of the top 6, tier number 1 at the running back position. Closing out tier number 1, we have the big man himself, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans going up against the Denver Broncos at home in Tennessee. Back-to-back games as a top 5 running back, currently the running back number 2.5 PPR. Now, the sole bright spot of the Denver Broncos' whole organization is their defense. Their defense is incredibly impressive, but they lost Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins, and ultimately, I think Derrick Henry still gets it done this week, but I am a little bit worried because the matchup is definitely tough. It's not, the safest bet that he's going to be a top 5 guy, but ultimately, he's Derek fucking Henry, so he'll probably get it done. Now we move to tier number 2 at the running back position, headlined by Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the Indianapolis Colts at home in Viva Las Vegas. Now, Josh Jacobs and this Las Vegas Raiders team cannot get it up in the second half. At the beginning of the game, they're always just pumping the team relentlessly from the back, and then about halfway through, they just forget how the fuck to play football. Last week, he was the running back number 18 in half PPR. He had a stretch in the season from weeks 4 through 7, where he's running back 1, 3, bye week, and running back 1. I am not someone who's quick to hop off the Josh Jacobs bandwagon. I truly believe he's amazing. Again, while this Raiders offense has been abysmally bad in the second half, I'm not someone who's going to be quick to hop off ship, jump off ship when it comes to Josh Jacobs. I still think that he is a very solid player. So up against the Colts defense, that isn't the best. He should be in for a big spot. At number 8, we have Kenneth Walker III, KW3. Now, I have heard some news that apparently this game's in Munich, Germany, and apparently Kenneth Walker didn't have his passport. I hope that's something that is figured out. And people in the comments last time were like, Nick, there's no way the NFL is that dumb that, there's no way that has to be figured out. Well, if you remember when the Giants went to London, their punter didn't have the correct passport and their punter was stuck in London for multiple days. So the NFL isn't as smart as you guys might think. So Kenneth Walker III, assuming he plays, this guy's a top 10 back, locked and loaded. The Buccaneers defense is definitely tough, but this guy has been incredible. Running back 2, 24, 3, and 8 over the last 4 games. Currently the running back 16, despite the fact that he didn't even play in week 1 and wasn't even a key part in this offense until week number 5. This matchup, chef's kiss, man, because the Bucs defense really isn't the best against the run. Sure, they look great against the Rams, but the Rams run defense is absolute dick cheese. At number 9, we have Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Alvin Kamara definitely let down last week up against the Baltimore Ravens, only having 8 half PPR points and finishing as the running back number 23. Despite that, though, I do think he has a bounce back spot here. It is unknown who the starting quarterback is going to be of the team in this game. It might be the Red Rifle, the Ginger Ninja himself, Andy Dalton, or maybe it's going to be famous Jameis. I'd prefer, for Alvin Kamara's sake, Andy Dalton, because he's more likely to dump the ball off, but if I was the Saints, I'd probably play famous Jameis Winston. At number 10, we have my guy, Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans, going up against that Giants run defense, the G-Men in MetLife. Last week, he was the running back number 12 in half PPR, going up against the Eagles, having a season-high 27 carries. This motherfucker took 27 carries for 139 yards. He currently averages 4.5 yards per attempt. If the Houston Texans weren't such an absolute disaster, if they weren't a dumpster fire of a team, Dameon Pierce might be a top 5 running back right now. But the issue is that they are a dumpster fire. He still has a lot of upside, but it's hard to see him really crack the top 3, the top 5, just because of how bad that the Houston Texans are. And they're never going to be in a game script where it's just positive to run. Like at the end of the game, they're not just running the ball out. They have to throw because their team is getting beat the dog shit out of. Next up, we got at number 11, Cordarrelle Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Going into last week's game, I started to panic a little bit. My knees got weak. My arms were heavy. Mom's spaghetti. You know what I'm saying, Eminem? But at the end of the day, I was nervous because right before the game started, like 30 minutes before, these reporters are like, oh man, Cordarrelle Patterson's going to get limited usage. They're going to ease him in just the tip. You know, they're not going to go full on with Patterson. And then, of course, Cordarrelle Patterson goes balls deep into the Chargers defense. 13 for 44, 1 target, 1 reception, 9 yards. 2 touchdowns, running back 7 on the week. The Panthers defense couldn't stop me if I was running the football, so I like this spot for Cordarrelle Patterson. At number 12, we move to the chef, Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. But before we break down Dalvin Cook and we move into the rest of the running backs for today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our sponsor of, you guessed it, DraftKings, because if you're watching this video, they've been on your screen this whole entire time. I'm pointing at them right now. So they have this great offer for you. If you are a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook and you click on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment, they will give you an offer of, if you bet $5 on any pregame money line, any sport pregame money line, and that bet wins, you'll receive $200 in free bets. Now, since the bet has to win, I think your best bet is on college football because they have much bigger favorites. It is highly unlikely that one of these 2 teams that I'm going to give you are going to lose. Now, obviously, anything's possible. Anything can happen, but I feel like these teams are going to win. So we got Tennessee versus Missouri. I like Tennessee. And Michigan versus Nebraska. I like Michigan. Make sure you take those bets. And if either of those bets hits, depending on which one you bet on, you receive $200 in free bets. You don't have to place those on college football. You can place them on the NFL, the NHL, the MLB if it was still going on, the NBA. So you can place it on anything. Make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description. Make sure to take advantage of it now because it is eventually going to disappear. It won't be here forever. Next up, we move to Dalvin Cook again, running back number 12 for me. Last week, RB 15. He started off the season incredibly cold, running back 20, 44, 14, 27. Ever since that, RB 7, 13 by week 8 and 15. Currently the running back 12 on the season. This game up against the Buffalo Bills is incredibly hard to assess right now because we really have no idea if Josh Allen is going to be cleared to play or not. With that injury, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, realistically, why would you throw Josh Allen out there to the Wolves for him to potentially get hurt again? Why not just wait a couple of weeks? Sure, you might not win the AFC East, which I hope the Dolphins win the AFC East, but sure, maybe they won't win the AFC East, but ultimately Josh Allen will be healthy for the playoffs, which is what matters, right? Winning the AFC East, at the end of the day, doesn't mean shit. So that's what I think about it. If it is Case Keenum under center, I think we are able to see a little bit more rushing from the Vikings because it will be a closer game, whereas I feel like the Bills, they're going to be chasing points. The Vikings will be chasing the points if Josh Allen plays. Even so, though, Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook, you play him every week, right? You drafted him in the first round for a reason. The same might not be able to be said for some other running backs that we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but Dalvin Cook, you know, he earned his first round draft capital or second round draft capital, depending on your league. Final running back in tier number 2, we have Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. 3 games in a row inside the top 16 at the running back position. I was someone who faded Miles Sanders aggressively, and Miles Sanders directly kicked me in the penis because he has been incredible this season. I expect him to continue that role this week up against a Commanders defense that has looked a little bit more stout. Now, I know what you might be thinking, Nick, you haven't seen or talked about Jonathan Taylor. Now, you'd be right because I didn't put Jonathan Taylor in my rankings because, frankly, I don't trust Jonathan Taylor worth anything. I do not trust him at all. Now, if I was to put him in my rankings, he would be either in tier 3 or tier number 4. That's where he would be because I think the Colts are going to get absolutely pummeled in this game, and the offensive line there splits like how Moses split the Red Sea. Okay? So I don't feel like, personally, JT is going to have a good game. You probably have to play him if he starts in most scenarios, but it's gross. Running back 14, Uncle Lenny Fournette of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Munich, Germany. There are reports that Lenny is going to lose his job to Rachaad White. How true is that? I'm not sure. I mean, Lenny's been, technically, he's been kind of like a bust, sort of, but he also hasn't been awful. He's running back 9 on the season, running back 22, 18, 48, 7, and 2 in his last stretch of games. So while a lot of people are quick to jump ship with Fournette, I'm still playing him up against the Seahawks defense. At number 15, we have Ron Jones of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Dallas Cowboys. He did practice on Wednesday with that ankle injury, which tells me that I personally believe he's going to play on Sunday. Obviously, that's still up in the air. If he doesn't play, A.J. Dillon, Quadzilla moves up the rankings. Aaron Jones here probably would have had a decent game against the Lions had he have not gotten hurt. He was on a stretch of 2 solid games before that. RB11 against the Buffalo Bills. RB4 up against the Commanders. The Dallas defense definitely is no sieve. They're definitely a very solid defense, but ultimately the game plan for the Packers with all these injuries that they have should be to jam the ball directly down the throat, to skull fuck, metaphorically, the defense with the rushing attack. So hopefully we see a healthy dosage of Ron Jones. At number 16, we have my guy Jamal with 2 A's Williams of the Detroit Lions going up against the Chicago Bears. Now, last week, I talked myself back into DeAndre Swift. I said, you know what? Dan Campbell said he's going to get him more touches. You know what Dan Campbell did? He gave him less touches. Dan Campbell has gotten on my last nerve. And I'm sure if you're someone who has DeAndre Swift on their fantasy football team, you are pissed. You are just as angry as I am because this motherfucker goes out there and it's not DeAndre Swift's fault. It's Dan Campbell's fault because DeAndre Swift runs all the way up to the 2-yard line. They're knocking on the door. Knock, 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 knock. And you know what they do? They pull the guy out of the game. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And I saw a report that someone who was at the game was saying that they saw DeAndre Swift like trying to get into the game and Dan Campbell kept holding him back. Fuck you, Dan Campbell. We need more DeAndre Swift, but until we see more DeAndre Swift, I have to rank Jamal Williams ahead of him. Jamal Williams has scored 2 touchdowns in 4 games on season. He has 8 total touchdowns. He's played in 8 games. That's 1 touchdown per game. Jamal Williams has earned his role. I get it. Jamal Williams is a decent player. But DeAndre Swift needs more touches. At number 17, we move to tier number 4 with DeAndre Swift, who we just talked about. Running back 26 last week. The man had 2 fucking carries. 2 carries for 10 yards. 4 targets, 3 receptions. Couldn't go 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's. 40 receiving yards, no touchdowns, 7 fantasy points. 7 fantasy points, right? Kick me directly in the face, man. Chicago Bears, this matchup is incredible. Mouth-watering. The issue is Dan Campbell. I want to rank Swift higher. I'm not losing all hope on Swift, but I'm definitely not fully confident. At 18, we have Donta Foreman of the Carolina Panthers going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Someone also calls him Donta Foreskin, which I think is also kind of funny. Last week, no bueno from Mr. Foreman. RB42. The week prior to that, RB5 and 13. Last time these two teams played was in week 8 against the Falcons. He was running back 5 that week. Chuba Hubbard might return. Chuba Hubba Bubba Max. He might be back. He might not be back. Kind of unsure until we get the active or inactive tonight. Even if he plays, I like Foreman. Again, the matchup's just incredibly juicy up against the Atlanta Falcons. At number 19, we have my guy Jeff Wilson Jr. of the Miami Dolphins going up against the Cleveland Browns. RB10 last week in his debut with the Dolphins. The man got traded to the team on Tuesday, shows up on Sunday, scores a touchdown, out snaps, out touches Raheem Mostert. And yet I look at other people's rankings, right? Because when I'm doing my rankings, the expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros show up on my screen. He was ranked, expert consensus ranking, running back 27. Why? Why is he not higher? Now, I'm not being a homer. I'm not. I really think Jeff Wilson is going to see more touches. Like, he outsnapped Mostert in his first fucking game there, and now he's had another week to practice. Makes sense. It all adds up, right? And yet people have Mostert ranked ahead of him. Doesn't make very much sense to me. At running back number 5, tier number 5, not running back 5. We already talked about that guy roughly a year ago. We got David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears going up against the Detroit Lions at home in Chicago. Again, the Lions defense is absolute dick cheese. I fully expect David Montgomery to have a decent game. I wish the team would commit to Khalil Herbert. I wish they would just say, hey, maybe they call me up. They say, hey, Nick, who do you think should be the starting running back? And I'll tell them David Montgomery. Or not David Montgomery. I'll tell them Khalil Herbert. He's faster. He's spry. But they keep giving David Montgomery the touches. And the problem is, now I still have to keep ranking David Montgomery higher, even though I think David Montgomery's worse. But the matchup's great. It's going to be a little bit cold, a little bit nippy in Chicago. 37 degrees. Your cock will be shriveling up into your body if you're at the stadium. But David Montgomery here, good spot for him. So, running back 20. 21, we have Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys. Another scenario where the other running back is much better than the starting running back, but that fat bastard Mike McCarthy keeps saying, Jerry Jones keeps talking about how, oh man, I can't do the Jerry Jones impersonation. I've literally listened to a couple of his press conferences or just him speaking on YouTube to try to get his voice down. I can't do it. Every time I try to do his voice, I start sounding like Bill Clinton, so I'm not going to do it, but he keeps talking about how this offense runs through Zeke. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. This offense would run much better if Tony Pollard was the guy. But Jerry Jones is a fucking dumbass. So is Mike McCarthy. So I don't expect less. I still got to rank Zeke higher, even though I think Tony Pollard's the more talented player. Tony Pollard last time out was the running back 4 in fantasy football and didn't score 1 touchdown. Not 2 touchdowns. This man scored 3 touchdowns. The Dallas Cowboys run on Duncan. They should run on Tony Pollard, but instead, they run on that fat bastard Ezekiel Elliott. It sucks. This game's also going to be cold. 27 degrees in Green Bay. It's officially very cold season for these cold weather teams. In New York, I think they said it was going to be 40-something for the Giants game, which isn't that bad, right? It's above freezing. It'll be fine. But this game's going to be a little bit cold for little Tony. But at the end of the day, I still think he's a top 23 back. At 23, we have Antonio Gibson. Now, I love Brian Robinson. I'm a big Brian Robinson stan. And Antonio Gibson was awful to start the season. But the issue is once Brian Robinson returned, it's like Antonio, like a light flickered in his head. Like, you ever seen those TV shows when you're a kid where like they zoom in on like the person's head and it has like the speech bubble, but inside that bubble, it's like a hamster running, like a hamster wheel? That's what finally happened. Like the hamster wheel or like the light bulb flicked above Antonio Gibson's head. He's like, oh, wow. I can't run 3.2 yards per carry and be the starting running back on this team. And then miraculously, running back 16, 12, and 28 over the last 3 games. I don't love him here against the Eagles defense, but he does deserve to be in tier number 5. At tier number 6, this is a little tier. Tier number 6, we have James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the LA Rams in LA. I was someone who in the offseason was on my knees giving the metaphorical gawk gawk 9,000 to James Conner. I loved the situation. I loved how he looked last year. He was getting all these targets. Chase Edmonds he was not there no more. He was in Miami. Now he's in Denver. And it was like, oh, wow, this is the perfect situation for James Conner. And even when healthy, James Conner was abysmally bad. Last week was his second best game on the season. 7 carries for 45 yards, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 5 for 5 for 19 receiving yards, 9 fantasy points, RB20 on the week. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't a great matchup, but he's still the bell cow back on the team, so he deserves a top 24 ranking. He doesn't deserve much better than top 24, but he deserves this spot. At number 25, we have Raheem the Dream Mostert, still going to get touches for the Dolphins, but he's lost his role, in my opinion, to Jeff Wilson. He was still running back 21 last week, even with Jeff Wilson in town, so I'm not fully ready to run away from Raheem Mostert, but his upside is capped by Jeff Wilson. At 26, we have Najee Harris. You know, earlier I was talking about Dalvin Cook, like, oh, he's a first-round running back, you got to start him. Najee Harris is the first-round running back that you probably should have kicked directly off your fucking team. Put him in one of those slingshots like he was an Angry Bird and shoot him into those green guys' buildings. So running back 31 last time out, 28 the time before that, running back 28 on the season. Saints defense has been so-so. Thinking about starting Najee Harris, that's a no-no. Straight bars. Let's be honest here. I like Najee Harris in the offseason. I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. I thought he was going to get a lot of targets. He hasn't gotten a lot of targets. He did get 6 targets last time out. Maybe things are going to switch for him, but there's also talks about them pivoting to Jaylen Warren. My confidence is at an all-time low with Najee Harris. At 27, we have Devin Singletary. Look, Devin Singletary is probably in one of the best situations in the NFL because of how good the offense is around him. The problem is when the offense goes up in games, they don't just run the ball. They don't say, hey, Devin, here's the fucking ball. Let me dump it off to you. Let me hand it to you. No, what they say is, hey, Josh Allen, just beat the dog shit out of this team that's already dead. Metaphorically, teabag the defense and throw the ball more. It makes no sense. Josh Allen might not play in this game. If Josh Allen doesn't play, I actually like Devin Singletary more. But either way, I don't feel like you should be comfortable playing him regardless. At 28, we have my guy, Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears going up against the Detroit Lions yet again. He is a great running back. The issue is the team does not believe that around him. Great matchup against the Lions, but I'd be hard-pressed to rank him much higher because of the fact that the team doesn't give him enough carries. 29, we have Kareem Hunt of the Cleveland Browns going up against the Miami Dolphins. Outside of week 1, where he's running back 5, he hasn't done jack shit. He hasn't even been a top 20 running back since week number 1. The matchup against the Dolphins, sure, it's a little bit enticing. I don't know why the Cleveland Browns didn't trade Kareem Hunt. Final running back here, final player of today's video, A.J. Dillon, Quadzilla of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Dallas Cowboys. It feels like finally the team realizes that they need to use Aaron Jones more, but the issue is that Aaron Jones is now banged up, so we might get back into this bullshit where they're giving both of them the ball, and ultimately it's parasitic. They both hurt each other. So outside of the top 30, I'm just going to name off a couple more running backs that are behind here. We have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Melvin Gordon, Brian Robinson, Jerick McKinnon, Pacheco, Benjamin, and then Hubbard would probably be ranked a little bit higher if he played. But again, we don't know if he's going to end up actually playing or not. If you have any questions about my running backs for the week, make sure you ask down below in the comment section. I love to talk to you guys down there. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Make sure you check out that DraftKings link in the video description down below. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye!